I'm a puzzle-obsessed nerd with a science background and a reading problem. Over 1,000 novels and 70 craft books later, I've seen patterns, not just in what makes a good novel different from an okay novel, but in what separates novels that get good reviews from the ones that spawn fandoms. A lot of what separates a good novel from one that spawns a fandom is chalked up to instinct. But it's not instinct. It's craft that no one has described systematically. Until now. I call this the Breakout Novel Pyramid. The bottom layer of the story is the story foundation. Readers need to know a few things about the story before they can sink into it and lose track of time. Who are the main characters? What do those characters want? What happens if they fail? For multi-published novelists, the question is rarely whether these elements exist in the story. It's more about whether these elements are aligned. And this works differently in different types of stories. In stories where a hero confronts a villain, the protagonist and antagonist are in conflict with each other, with the villain creating the obstacles that force this particular hero to change and grow, or in some stories to become an even worse version of themselves. In mysteries, the story foundation is about the question the mystery poses and why this particular sleuth has to solve it. The more specifically the crime targets this sleuth's vulnerabilities, and the harder it is to pin the true criminal down, the stronger the story foundation. In romance, the hero and the love interest are two characters who are uniquely poised to catalyze each other's growth. It's not just strong chemistry between two characters who are a bit wary of each other. These are characters who are tailor made for each other. They're the ones that make the other person's growth feel inevitable because they pose exactly the challenges that this specific character needs to realize that it might be time for them to change, and it's okay to risk doing something different. When you've got a strong story foundation, you're ready to draw readers in with immersion. Layer 2 is reader immersion. When the story foundation is solid, you can pull readers deep into your fictional world, and it can feel so real that they'll lose track of time. Immersion is something that you create through many different ways. So it's partly created through your lead characters and your entire cast. And it's also something created by the structure of your sequences. So when each scene is the inevitable next step and the path feels like it's closing in around your protagonist until the only way out is through, that makes it really hard to put down. Immersion also comes from these invisible forces that are specific to your genre. They create the emotional experience that the genre readers are looking for. So, romance has the push and pull tension between the couple. Mysteries need forward momentum in the investigation and also uncertainty about the solution. Villain driven stories need this escalating tension and a hero facing overwhelming odds. When immersion is working on top of a story foundation, that's when readers lose track of time. Without that foundation underneath of it, immersion becomes inconsistent. Readers get absorbed in some parts, but then they hit snags, and that can bounce them out. Layer 3 is reader obsession. This is where fandoms are born. Obsession happens when your novel reveals something about human nature that readers haven't seen articulated before. The story isn't just satisfying, it is unforgettable. Most experienced authors already have obsession potential in their manuscript. Sometimes it's already developed, but maybe it could be pushed a little bit further. Other times, the potential is there with just a small modification. And what creates obsession varies by genre, so I'm going to highlight a few ways it shows up that work across multiple genres. So, obsession-worthy stories do more than hit the expected beats. They add something distinctive, something that makes this novel stand out compared to all the other novels like it. This might be because they have a premise that reframes a familiar conflict in a way that readers haven't encountered. It could be a lead character with traits that haven't been represented often in that genre. It could be that the logic behind a character's behavior is something that readers hadn't considered before, but they recognize is true in hindsight after they read it. And this is also where we come back to the story foundation. At the obsession level, your lead characters don't just fit with each other, they feel like they could not exist in any other stories. Readers who finish books like that don't move on. They buy out your backlist and binge read the rest. So, how do you move up the breakout novel pyramid? First, you need to know what needs attention. Story foundation problems show up in the blurb and in developmental feedback. If you consistently struggle to articulate the core conflict of your novel in one or two sentences, start with the story foundation. Reader immersion problems show up in reviews and beta reader feedback. Reviewers comment on pacing issues or genre specific problems. So some parts of the story worked, but readers could tell that there was something that just wasn't clicking. Reader obsession problems are the most difficult to diagnose because the signal is subtle. So you can have a book that gets 4 or 5-star reviews and it's still not building the loyalty that you're after. Warm reviews without devoted readers is the best signal that you've got opportunities in reader obsession. The rule: always start with the lowest layer that needs work first. Obsession techniques applied to a misaligned story foundation just won't hold. Want to know more about how your novel fits in the Breakout Novel Pyramid? Take the Breakout Novel X-Ray. It's a free quiz based on this framework. It takes 5 minutes, it's personalized to your genre, and you can find it at loripuma.com/quiz.